The arrival of the British in Australia is a contentious topic in the country. The Indigenous population sees it as an invasion, but others refer to the arrival of Captain James Cook as a discovery. Well, today, one of the top universities in the country has got involved in the debate. Here are some of the details.
On the site of the cottage where Captain Cook, who discovered Australia, was born,
So there are some of the details. Let's discuss it a little bit further with Ben Lewis, an Australian journalist based here in London. Good to have you with us, Ben. So this has been quite a firestorm today. So many people tweeting on it, talking about it. Is it something that's been discussed before, this invaded versus discovery?
Well, it has, and it's a debate that's not necessarily split down the lines of Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. And it's interesting, a couple of points about this guidebook. The university says that it is a guide. It's not hard and fast rules. People don't have to use the language of invaded rather than settled. And interestingly too, these guidelines have been around for a few years now, and the story was picked up by a conservative-leaning newspaper, picked up by talk radio, and has sparked this huge outcry of people claiming that universities are trying to revise Australian history. Many people, of course, would say it's an accurate representation of history. It's something that has been debated in Australia in the past, but perhaps has fallen off the radar in recent years. This has really brought it right back to the fore.
Kevin Rudd, former leader, actually back in 2008, issued an apology to the Aboriginal people. Do you think that relations have moved forward from that time, or in a better state than they were 8 years ago?
Well, many Indigenous leaders at the time said the apology, particularly the stolen generations, was incredibly important to be able to move on. But now a lot of it is about practical steps, and the vast majority of Australians would want to see things improve for the Indigenous community. There's the Closing the Gap scheme, which has been running for about 10 years now, which is trying to improve things like healthcare and education. But there is still a big difference. For example, life expectancy, the average life expectancy for an Indigenous man versus a non-Indigenous man, there's a 10-year difference there. Incarceration, the Indigenous population of Australia is about 2 or 3% of the whole population. In prisons, 27% of the prison population is Indigenous. So there's a huge amount of progress that needs to still be made there. It does have bipartisan political support, but our current Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, just the other day said that we're not meeting these goals. More does need to be done. So
he is somebody that would perhaps push the agenda of Aboriginal people further than perhaps other leaders?
Not necessarily. It has been, as I said, quite a bipartisan issue over recent years. Both major parties acknowledge that something needs to be done. On a topic like this, though, talking about history, talking about language, you can look at the issue of Australia Day. It's our national day. It's the 26th of January, the day that the first fleet arrived in Botany Bay in New South Wales. Many people, non-Indigenous people included, refer to it as Invasion Day, say the day is insensitive and should be moved, but you won't find any major political parties in Australia supporting such a move.
Very interesting. Thank you for that. Ben Lewis, Australian journalist here in London.